No one is coming to fix you. Not later. Not when things get harder. Not when you finally feel ready. No one is stepping in to change your habits, your mindset, or your life. And the longer you wait for that moment, the more time you lose. You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think. Marcus Aurelius. There is no rescue, no perfect opportunity, no sudden clarity that will arrive and solve everything for you. That idea has been quietly controlling you, making you wait, making you hesitate, making you believe that something external will shift before you do. It won't. And that's not a negative truth. It's a freeing one. Because the moment you accept that no one is coming, you stop waiting. And waiting has been your biggest problem. Not lack of knowledge. Not lack of potential. Waiting. Waiting to feel motivated. Waiting to feel confident. Waiting for the right time. Waiting for someone to guide you, push you, or validate you. And while you wait, your life stays the same. Nothing moves. Nothing improves. Nothing changes. Because waiting is passive. And passive people don't create results. They react to them. They hope for them. They watch others build what they keep postponing. And deep down, you already know this. You've felt it. That quiet frustration. That awareness that you could be doing more. But you're not. Not because you can't. Because you haven't decided to. Luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity. Seneca. You keep looking for opportunity, but you're ignoring preparation. You want the moment, without becoming the person who can use it. And that creates a gap between where you are and where you know you should be. That gap is not filled by time. It's filled by action. And no one else can take that action for you. No one else can build your discipline. No one else can control your mind. No one else can create your future. That responsibility is yours. Completely. And most people avoid that truth. Because it's heavy. It removes excuses. It removes comfort. It removes the idea that something outside of you is responsible for your situation. But once you accept it, something shifts. You stop blaming. You stop waiting. You stop looking for external solutions. And you turn inward. Not into your thoughts. Into your actions. Because that's where control actually exists. Not in what you think. Not in what you feel. In what you do. Every day. Repeatedly. Consistently. Without needing someone else to tell you. Without needing someone else to push you. Without needing someone else to fix you. That's the difference between people who stay stuck and people who move. One group waits. The other acts. Regardless. You've been waiting for something to change. But nothing changes until you do. That's the rule. Unforgiving. But simple. You move first. Then your life responds. Not the other way around. And once you accept that fully, you stop wasting time. You stop delaying decisions. You stop negotiating with yourself. Because now you understand something clearly. There is no backup plan. No rescue. No external force coming to correct your path. This is it. Your life is being shaped right now by what you choose to do or avoid. And every day you wait, you reinforce the same pattern, the same identity, the same results. So the question becomes simple, not easy. Simple. Are you going to keep waiting? Or are you going to take control? Because no one else will do it for you. Kill the waiting habit. You don't just wait. You've trained yourself to wait. That's why it feels normal. That's why it feels justified. That's why it keeps happening. Waiting is not something you occasionally do. It's a pattern, a conditioned response. And until you break it, nothing changes. You delay, but time does not. Seneca. Look at how it shows up. You see what needs to be done. Clear, simple, actionable. And instead of moving, your mind inserts a pause. Not yet. Later. Let me think. That pause is everything. Because in that moment, you shift from action to delay. And once delay begins, it builds. You open a gap. And that gap gets filled with thoughts. Excuses that sound reasonable. Explanations that feel logical. Justifications that protect your comfort. You tell yourself you need more clarity, more time, more energy, more certainty. But none of those are actually required. They're conditions you've created to avoid acting. That's the truth. Waiting is not preparation. It's avoidance disguised as intelligence. You don't wait because it's necessary. You wait because it's easier than acting. Because action exposes you to failure, to judgment, to uncertainty. So your mind protects you. It tells you to wait. And you listen. Again. And again. Until waiting becomes your default. And now, even when you know you should act, you don't. Not because you're incapable. Because you're conditioned. You've repeated the same pattern so many times that it feels automatic. See, pause, delay, repeat. That loop is running your life. Quietly. Consistently. And the longer it runs, the stronger it becomes. Because every time you delay, you reinforce it. You teach your brain that hesitation is the correct response. That inaction is acceptable. That waiting is normal. So it gives you more of it. This is how years pass without real movement. Not because you didn't know what to do. Because you didn't act when you saw it. While we are postponing, life speeds by. Seneca. You don't notice it day to day. But over time, it accumulates. Missed opportunities. Delayed progress. Unfinished actions. And eventually, regret. Not because you failed. Because you didn't try. That's what waiting leads to. Not safety. Stagnation. So we remove it. Completely. Not by thinking about it. By interrupting the pattern. At the exact moment it begins. You see the task. You feel the pause. That's the trigger. That's where you act. Immediately. Before the thought finishes. Before the excuse forms. Before the delay starts. You move. Not later. Now. That is how you break the loop. Not gradually. Instantly. You don't negotiate with waiting. You eliminate it. Because waiting is not something you manage. It's something you cut off. You replace the pattern. See, act. No pause. No delay. No gap. And at first, This will feel uncomfortable because you're overriding a habit. Your mind will resist. It will try to slow you down. It will try to bring back the pause. That's expected. That's the pattern trying to survive. You don't listen. You act anyway. And every time you do, you weaken the old loop. You create a new one. See, act again and again until it becomes automatic, until action becomes your default response. That's when everything changes. Because now, you don't rely on motivation. You don't wait for the right time. You don't need to feel ready. You move consistently. And consistency is what creates results. Not bursts of effort. Not moments of clarity. Daily execution. Without delay. That's how you build momentum. And momentum removes friction. Because once you're moving, it becomes easier to continue. But you rarely get there. Because you stop at the beginning. At the pause. So you remove it. Completely. You don't give yourself time to hesitate. You act before hesitation forms. That is control. Not over your mind. Over your behavior. And behavior is what shapes your life. So when you kill the waiting habit, you don't just become more productive. You become someone who executes. Someone who moves. Someone who does what needs to be done. When it needs to be done. That identity changes everything. Because now, your life is no longer delayed. It's in motion. Constantly. You are the problem. Not your situation. Not your past. Not your environment. You. That's not an insult. It's the most important realization you can have. Because as long as the problem exists outside of you, you have no control over it. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Marcus Aurelius. You've been looking for reasons. Reasons why things aren't working. Why progress feels slow. Why you're not where you want to be. And you found them. Lack of time. Lack of resources. Lack of clarity. Other people. Circumstances. All of it feels valid. All of it sounds logical. And all of it keeps you stuck. Because every external explanation removes responsibility. And without responsibility, there is no change. You don't act on things you don't believe are your fault. You wait for them to change. You expect something outside of you to shift. And that brings you right back to the same trap. Waiting. Blaming. Staying still. But the moment you accept something different, everything changes. The moment you accept that you are the problem, you become the solution. That's the shift. Not emotional. Not motivational. Structural. Because now, everything is in your control. Not the situation. Your response to it. Not the outcome. Your actions toward it. And that is enough. More than enough. But it requires something most people avoid. Honesty. Real honesty. Not surface-level awareness. Not admitting small things. Full responsibility. You look at your life as it is. Not as you explain it. Not as you justify it. As it is. And you ask one question. Where am I not acting? Because that's where the problem is. Not in what you lack. In what you're not doing. That's where your attention goes. Not outward. inward, to your behavior, to your patterns, to your decisions. And once you see it clearly, something becomes obvious. You already know what to do. You've known for a long time. You just haven't been doing it consistently. That's the gap. Not knowledge, execution. And that gap is your responsibility. No one else's. Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one. Marcus Aurelius. You don't need more advice. You don't need more insight. You don't need more planning. You need to act on what you already understand. Relentlessly. Without excuse. Without delay. Because every excuse you make protects your current identity. I'm buce. I'm tired. I'm not ready. They sound different, but they all serve the same purpose. Avoid action. And as long as you accept them, nothing changes. So you stop accepting them. Completely. You cut them off. Not by arguing with them, by ignoring them, and acting anyway. Because your excuses don't need to be solved. They need to be bypassed. You don't wait until they disappear. You move while they exist. That's what separates you. That's what creates progress. Not perfect conditions. Imperfect action. Taken consistently. This is where it becomes uncomfortable. Because now, there's no one to blame. No situation to hide behind. No story to justify inaction. It's just you. And what you choose to do. Every day. That level of responsibility is heavy. But it's also freeing. Because now, your life is not dependent on anything outside of you. It's not waiting on circumstances. It's not limited by other people. It's not controlled by variables you can't influence. It's controlled by your actions. And your actions are yours. Fully. So you take ownership. Complete ownership. Of your time. Your decisions. Your habits. Your standards. Everything. No exceptions. No excuses. Because ownership is what gives you power. Not thinking. Not planning. Ownership. Once you take it, everything becomes clear. You see what needs to be done. You act on it. You repeat. Daily. Without negotiation. Without hesitation. And over time, your life changes. Not suddenly. Not dramatically. Consistently. Because consistency is what creates results. Not intensity. Not bursts of effort. Daily execution. Without excuse. That is the difference. And it starts here. With one decision. You stop blaming. You stop waiting. You stop explaining. And you take full responsibility. Because no one is coming. And that's exactly why you must. No more excuses. Excuses don't sound weak. That's why they work. They sound reasonable. Logical. Even responsible. I'm tired. I don't have time. I'll do it later. Nothing about those statements sounds like failure. But that's exactly what they produce. You always own the option of having no opinion. Marcus Aurelius. You also always own the option of taking action. But you keep choosing explanation instead. And every time you explain why you're not acting, you reinforce the behavior of not acting. That's the pattern. You don't miss opportunities because you don't see them. You miss them because you justify not taking them. You give yourself permission to stay where you are, through words that sound harmless, but cost you everything. Because excuses are not just thoughts. They are decisions. Decisions to delay, to avoid, to stay the same. And the more you repeat them, the more natural they become, until you don't even question them anymore. You just accept them, automatically. And once that happens, you lose control. Because now your behavior is dictated by comfort, not by standards. Look at your day. Where are the excuses? Where do you say later instead of now? Where do you say I can't instead of I won't? Because that's the truth. Most of your can't is actually won't. You could act. You just choose not to. And that choice is what keeps your life exactly where it is. Unchanged. Predictable. Limited. First say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do. Epictetus. You've already decided what you want. More discipline. More control. More progress. But your actions don't match that decision. Because your excuses override it. They interrupt execution. They create delay. They protect your comfort. So we remove them. Not by analyzing them. Not by trying to understand them. By refusing to accept them. Completely. An excuse appears. You don't engage with it. You don't evaluate it. You don't justify it. You ignore it. And you act. Immediately. That's the rule. No exceptions. Because the moment you start negotiating, you've already lost. Excuses are built for negotiation. They're designed to sound convincing, to make an action feel acceptable. And if you give them space, they will win. Every time. So you don't give them space. You cut them off. At the moment they appear. You move before they finish forming. That is how you eliminate them. Not over time. On contact. You replace the pattern. Excuse action. Not excuse delay. Not excuse thinking. Action. Immediate. Consistent. Unquestioned. And at first, it will feel harsh. Uncomfortable. Because you're removing the escape. You're removing the option to back out. But that's exactly what creates strength. Because now, your behavior is no longer flexible. It's fixed. You do what needs to be done, regardless of how you feel, regardless of what your mind says, regardless of the situation. That is discipline, not intensity, not motivation. Consistency without exception. You don't rise to your goals. You fall to your standards. And your standards are revealed by your actions, not your intentions, not your words. What you do, repeatedly, that's your standard. So if you want to change your life, you don't need new goals. You need stricter standards. Standards that don't allow excuses. Standards that don't allow delay. Standards that demand action. Every time. Because once that becomes your baseline, everything changes. You become reliable. To yourself. You stop breaking promises. You stop starting and stopping. You stop drifting. Because now, your behavior is consistent. And consistency creates results. not occasionally, predictably. That's when your life starts to move. Not because you found something new, because you finally removed what was holding you back. Excuses. Completely. No way back. You've seen it now. Clearly. Not as an idea. As truth. No one is coming. Waiting is a habit. Excuses are choices. And you are responsible for everything you tolerate. There's no going back to not knowing that. Begin at once to live, and count each separate day as a separate life. Seneca. The only question left is this: are you going to act on it? Because understanding changes nothing. Not your habits. Not your results. Not your life. Action does. And now you don't have the luxury of pretending you don't know what to do. You know. You've always known. You just avoided acting on it. Now that option is gone. Because once you see the pattern, you can't unsee it. You can ignore it. You can delay again. You can fall back into old behavior. But it won't feel the same. Because now you'll recognize it. You'll see the moment you hesitate. You'll notice the excuse forming. You'll feel the pull to wait. And you'll know exactly what it is. A choice. Not a condition. Not a limitation. A choice. That awareness removes your ability to hide from yourself. And that's what creates change. Not motivation. Not pressure. Clarity. Unavoidable clarity. You see the gap between what you know and what you do. And that gap becomes uncomfortable. Not in a way that weakens you. In a way that forces you to move. Because staying the same now feels worse than acting. That's the shift. You don't need to be pushed anymore. You don't need to be reminded. You don't need external pressure. You've created internal alignment, where your actions match your awareness. Automatically. That's what makes it permanent. Not discipline. Identity. You are no longer someone who waits. You are no longer someone who negotiates. You are no longer someone who makes excuses. That version of you is gone. Not because you decided to be better. Because you refused to be less. That's the difference. You've raised your standard. And standards don't depend on how you feel. They define how you act. Every time. So now, when hesitation appears, you move. When an excuse forms, you act. When discomfort shows up, you continue. No discussion. No delay. No internal debate. That's what it means to have no way back. You've removed the exit. There is no version of your day where you don't act. There is no scenario where you fall into old patterns without noticing. And once you notice, you correct. Immediately. That's the system. Not complex. Not flexible. Unbreakable. Because it's built on something simple. Truth. You know what happens when you wait. You've lived it. You know what excuses produce. You've experienced it. You know what inaction leads to. You've seen it. So you don't go back. Not because you can't. Because you won't. Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one. Marcus Aurelius. That's where you are now. No more thinking. No more planning. No more preparing. You act. Clean. Direct. Without interruption. That is who you become. And once that locks in, everything changes. Your results, your confidence, your direction. Because now your life moves every day, without pause, without delay, without excuse. That's what separates you from everyone still waiting, still thinking, still stuck. You're not better. You're just no longer hesitating. And that changes everything. If you made it this far, then you already know. So don't stop here. Subscribe to the Unbroken Protocol and continue to the next video. You're trapped in your own mind. Because once you take full responsibility, you face the deeper truth. What's been holding you isn't the world. It's what's happening inside your head. Meet me in the next video.